Hi, I'm Chadillac. This is the Cage Rage Podcast.
I'm Miguel. Glad to be here on the Cage Rage Podcast.
Hey, this is Chadillac. You're here with the Cage Rage Podcast. Special fight analyst, host, matchmaker extraordinaire, ladies man, Costa Rican aficionado. Well, I don't know what else I could say about him. Bilingual cunnilingus expert, badass from the South, New York kid himself, Miguel Iturrate.
Hey, that is a pretty good old school intro there. Nice.
Not bad. What's up, Miguel?
But I'm glad to be back, Chad. Always fun to be on the Cage Rage Podcast. And, we're going to talk some UFC stuff and see what we got on the UFC schedule for New Year. So, we're going to talk some Jon Jones and some Cyborg, Justino. And we'll go from there. We'll see how it goes. So, always ready to have some fun.
Yeah, so we're talking UFC 232, December 29th. So we've got a post-Christmas gift. And I'm actually excited for this UFC. And I don't always get excited for the UFCs anymore because, man, some of them leave a lot to be desired. Look, I'm not saying it's an easy sport. Jesus Christ, I did it for a long time. Promoting is really, really hard. Matchmaking is obviously super hard. Doing this sport is not an easy job. And Dana White and the crew are the best at what they do, and we give our hats off to them. And they're great at what they do. They really are. They're the best. Having said that, you don't always get the greatest fight, and that's just the way it is. Joe Silva told me one time. It was right after Ken Shamrock knocked out Chemo. And I was talking to Joe cage side, and he said, as long as you finish hard, he said, that's the best you can get. He said, as long as you finish strong, he said, that's what matters. That's what brings them back. And I said, yep, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So we're talking about a really great fight coming up, December 29th, the UFC 232. And Miguel, why don't you go ahead and just take it away and tell us all about it. Let's start with the second fight, which I think is actually, in my eyes, going to be probably the best fight of the night, with Nunes and Cyborg, which is actually the co-main event. So I think it ought to be the main event. But, hey, who am I?
Yeah, you called it. I mean, it's at a catch weight of 140 pounds. I think that's.
Hey, Miguel, your sound's a little low on me.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head with
there you go.
Cyborg match and Amanda Nunes. I think it's at 140-pound catch weight. I think that's a lot of the story there. But I think what you're looking at there is that's the great fight, the fight that I want to see in terms of just fighting. Nunes, a real good challenge to Cyborg. Cyborg considered the untouchable champion. It was always the talk of her and Ronda Rousey showing down against each other. Cyborg could never make the weight, and that's always been the issue with this girl. So that's why I question the weight, catch weight in this fight. Why are we still doing this to this girl? Nunes could go to 145. Sure. If you tell Nunes it's at 140 and she's at 135 for her belt, of course I'll take it, But she would have fought at 145. Why are we doing this to Justino? And that could be the story at the end is, everybody's got a number when you cut weight. It's what is that number where you can no longer perform the way you should perform because you've cut too much weight. Then, how low can you go kind of thing. And what if Justino's number is about 142, So well, I don't know.
Well, that's not fair.
See what goes on.
That's not fair. Hell, if we're going to do that, then okay. Fuck it. Why not just have Nunes meet Cyborg at her own weight? And why have Cyborg cut any weight at all? Oh, poor Chris Cyborg. Let's just let her fight at 180 pounds and let Nunes go up to fight her at 180.
Well, no, but
because she's 180 fucking pounds, and if she wants to fight somebody half her goddamn weight, then she needs to cut the fucking weight to get there to fight. That's why.
It's
bullshit.
Anybody you put in front of her, but the UFC has restrictions on weight classes and things, and that's why. The bottom line is Nunes is a decorated 135-pound champion. It's not too much of a stretch to ask her to challenge for the 145-pound belt. Instead, they make a catch weight of 140 pounds. I don't get it. And, not poor Justino, but yeah, poor Justino, because she's the one who's going to have to struggle to make the weight, which has always been a question. Why put your own athlete through that sort of stress? So that could play itself out in this fight. And Nunes doesn't need any advantages. I think she's in a good fight and in a good position to challenge Justino because I think she's got a deeper game.
Okay. That's fair. Let me ask you this then. How much weight is Cyborg cutting to make it to 145?
She's still cutting an extraordinary amount of weight. She's a big fighter. I don't know, Nunes, let's put the weight cut aside. We'll talk about that.
No, let's not put the weight cut aside. How much weight is Cyborg cutting to make it to 145?
When she starts to train or she's training, and so she probably walks around 175.
Okay, so she's cutting 30 pounds to make it to 145. Right?
Probably something in the neighborhood, yeah.
So when she's stepping into the cage, at somewhere in the neighborhood of 160 pounds probably, pretty easily.
Yeah, depending on how it goes, yeah, you're probably not far off.
Okay.
I don't know if women...
When Nunes steps into the cage, so if Nunes met her at 145, when Nunes stepped into the cage, what would she weigh? 145 pounds?
No, she could probably be, Nunes may cut down from 155, 160.
You really think so? You think she's that big?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're talking about, again, though the women are further behind the men, I think you're talking about there's certain aspects of it where on the professional level, they're right there with them. And I think that the women looking for an edge in weight cutting and stuff, and on top of that the promotion forces them to make other weights and doesn't make certain weight classes available, it's put these women in a class where, yeah, they weight cut, and they're some of them are doing some extreme weight cuts, Cyborg being the biggest one, but it wouldn't surprise me. Nunes, when they stand next to each other, Nunes is pretty big. I know that's not a comparison that's perfect or anything like that, but it's telling. I don't think size shouldn't be a problem, because at the end of the day before, they were both 145 pounds, right, or 140 pounds. So, but whatever they put up, Cyborg will probably put on a little more weight. She'll probably be a little heavier heading into the fight. But I don't know that Nunes is a pro. She's already going to be fighting up a weight class. So I think she deserves the spot as a super fight. Okay. I think she's going to be in the fight no matter what. And it would be a shame if Cyborg shows, if it goes into round 4 and Cyborg is gassed, then maybe you do have to question forcing her to 140 pounds.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, if she gasses at 140, she gasses at 145. 5 pounds isn't going to make that much difference in gas.
No, I don't think it's carrying the weight. I think it's the effects of cutting the last 5 pounds.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I'm saying that I don't think that cutting for her, I don't think that 5 pounds is that much difference, because she's used to cutting that kind of weight. Now, to ask her to cut to 130, yeah, absolutely. That's a big difference.
She medically can't make 135. They've tried a dozen times, and she can't make it. It's doctors tell her no.
Right, so I understand that.
She can't make 135, so she's got a threshold. I'm questioning, what if that threshold is close to 140? What if now that she's older, that number has moved up a little bit, and she's more stressed out? There's no need for a catch weight when you're talking about two polished stars.
Yeah.
You put Nunes in, she's the underdog anyway. You put Nunes in with the full weight class, and you don't add the extra stress, in my opinion. I mean, there may be another reason to do it. I don't see what that is. Nunes would have taken the fight. Maybe you got to pay Nunes.
Well, then you put the belt on the line too, right? And that makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I think
I don't argue that.
Anybody who's counting Nunes out isn't giving Nunes enough credit. Nunes is a fighter. She's not a woman fighter. She's just a fighter in terms of you can look at her and her in-ring stuff with an androgen. It doesn't matter that it's a woman. It's like sometimes it's like, oh, they're hitting each other, but they don't have the strength of men, so it doesn't have the impact. You don't hear the sound. You don't have the feel. You know, Nunes has escaped a lot of that. She's in another world. You know,
absolutely agree.
Rousey took them there, and there is an elite class of women where just the techniques and stuff, you're not too far off from the men, so you can consider it a fight, not a girls' fight. And that's what I think makes it exciting. And a lot of people, you know, and I'm not being disrespectful. Cyborg gets a lot of jokes about how she should fight men or, you know, stuff like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying by comparison, you know, a lot of people say, oh, girl fights or ladies fights and stuff. And you get an image of like, okay, it's not going to be the same adrenaline rush. And often it's more. If you really have the high-level competition and you really got girls that are well-matched and girls that are dedicated to the sport, then you can throw that woman stuff, man stuff out the window. You got yourself a fight, and that's what I think we have here. We have ourselves a fight.
Oh, okay. So, so first of all, we're doing this at 140 pounds, so they got a catch weight, and that benefits Amanda. I was unaware that Amanda walked around at 165 pounds. I thought that her walking weight was something like 145. So I didn't know that.
I don't know, but I don't know for sure. But I'm giving her credit. She's from an advanced team, an American Top Team. She's surrounded by people who cut weight. And
I mean, I've seen her in person, and I didn't think she looked that big. I'll put it that way.
All right. I mean, I understand that. I can say I don't know.
But I will tell you this. Here are the stats on her.
I don't think the difference was worth making the other girl cut 5 pounds.
Yeah, I can. Okay, here's what I can say about that. I can say that if she's okay with it, and this was strategy for her, because she wanted to take 9 months to get ready for this fight, and Chris Cyborg's argument was, you be ready to fight, you be ready to fight right now. You fight me now, you fight me now. And Amanda Nunes said, no, I need to take 9 months to be ready for this fight. I said, I fight you, but I want to fight you at 9 months and get ready and make sure I'm ready to go. She big, blah, blah, blah. So Amanda is already thinking about the fact that Cyborg is much bigger than her. She's much more powerful than her. And she knows she's going to have a great game plan. You know, the guys at ATT are honing her game plan to an absolute T. And I don't know what Cyborg's game plan is going to be other than bull rush, crush, kill. So let's talk about what the fight looks like instead of just that. Having said this, Amanda Nunes, they're both 5'9" or 5'8". I'm off an inch one way or the other, but whatever it is, they're the same height. But Amanda Nunes has a 2-inch reach advantage on her and a 2-inch leg reach advantage on her, which shocked me. I didn't realize that was the case. I assumed that Cyborg was longer than her in all directions, and she's not. Amanda Nunes has a 2-inch reach and leg advantage on her, which gives her a huge advantage. So talk to me about what happens when the bell rings.
Well, as I said in the earlier part, I think Nunes is in this ball game, and I think if you're ruling around, you think Cyborg's going to run her over. I think you got to look at the Holly Holm fight for Cyborg. I think you saw Cyborg facing somebody that she couldn't run over, and then her game becomes forced to a certain package, and she becomes a little bit limited. I think the Holly Holm fight shows you that there are ways that you can beat her. Holm couldn't do it, or didn't do it that time.
What did Holmes do? Tell the audience what Holmes did, basically.
Holmes didn't break.
What did she do to keep her from breaking, though?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is Cyborg punishes you, and most girls start getting punishment like that, and they're out of the fight, tapping out or whatever is the situation. Holm, busted up face, bloody nose, round 4, is still in a defensive boxing stance, hitting you with a jab when you're coming in and letting you know that she's very much in the fight. You know, that's a very different opponent than she's ever faced. You know, so you have to give her credit. Now, you got to give Cyborg credit because facing that for the first time, I mean, she won the fight, right? So
Yeah.
you can't say she unraveled or anything like that. But it did show you some of her limitations, I think. I think somebody who sees that says, Holm doesn't kick enough, or, Holm doesn't bring that aspect of taking this to the ground or something like that. So, maybe an attempted takedown somewhere in there would draw her off even more,
Yes.
or give an inkling at something. So I think Amanda, with her, you mentioned an ability to game plan and a depth of her game, I think could make this an interesting fight. I think the same X factor applies. First 2-3 minutes, Cyborg's real dangerous, and if she comes in throwing heavy leather and takes her out, hey, so be it. But even if she gets roughed up, bloody nose, and she's messed up in round 3, if Amanda Nunes looks up, not in round 3, in minute 3, if Amanda looks up after that rush, and there's still a glint in her eye, then you still got yourself a fight.
Right.
You may have yourself a 5-round fight.
Yes. Okay, 5-round fight then. Okay, so we get out of the first 3 minutes. After the first 3 minutes, let's say this happens, because I think this is probably what happens. I think Nunes gets a takedown at some point from the bull rush, because Nunes kind of owns Cyborg in every way in the grappling, other than just sheer size and strength. Nunes is, by all accounts, a legit black belt in jiu-jitsu. She's a very aggressive, powerful wrestler, so I'm told. What I've seen of her wrestling in person is very limited, but I was pretty impressed with it. But it was closed, and they kind of hurried us out before I could see very much of it. But it was pretty impressive what I saw of it. So talk to me what happens if, A, first round finishes with all of a sudden Amanda gets a double leg and puts Cyborg on her back.
Well, here's the kind of thing. You never know what happens in a fight. The bottom line to me is, and this applies to every single MMA fight, every single one, and you could take this to the bank. If you get a takedown and you wind up on top in a positive position, in half guard, in full mount, or something like that, then you're going to be in a situation where you must finish that fight. If you don't finish the fight, then the other person could have gotten credit, or at the very least psychologically be entering the next round saying, hey, I didn't get finished. I had him on my stomach for 3 minutes on a mount, and he can't finish me. I took his shots. Changes the fight. So if you get the takedown and you have a shot of finishing, you have to finish. Okay? Don't give the person that chance. Don't give Cyborg the chance to be on her feet again next round, standing up in an exchange. If you get her down, you got to finish the fight. Now,
I don't know that I agree with that, but okay. I understand what you're saying.
You do that with a submission. It's a kill position. It's a kill position. That's what the position is for. You're mounted. You're going to let the fight drag on for 4 or 5 minutes? That's exactly what you're trained not to do. So it's a kill position. It's like having back mount. Any one of the choose a kill position. There are positions you don't need to let the opponent up under. If you have, it's almost to your detriment and to the positive defense of the opponent, almost like they're gaining some points. You don't win with defense, but you do have to hold it a little bit. I consider those positions kill positions. You have to kill. So if Amanda does Nunes have the mindset to do that? Yes. So if she I think Nunes could spend 3-4 rounds setting up the takedown so that she doesn't fail when she does it. Maybe she doesn't take a shot at it until she knows she's good and tired, or maybe she pressures her 3 or 4 takedowns at a time until she gets it. It could go either way. Yes, I think he wants that top position. I think that's a goal.
Okay, so round 2 comes out. Do you think that Amanda starts to cut angles, use some low kicks, and start to use her jab? And as Cyborg starts to, Cyborg's going to come forward, right?
What are we looking at in round 1? Are we looking at, in round 1, are you looking at an even round? Are you looking at a 10-9 round for Cyborg? Are you looking at a 10-8 round for Cyborg?
Probably 10-9.
On what's going on.
Okay, let's call it. Let's say that she really dominated. Let's say that Amanda didn't get any takedowns, and that Amanda kind of got out of the round alive.
All right, Cyborg rushed her for 3 rounds, messed her up, but didn't kill her.
Yeah, and Amanda gets out alive. Round 2.
Again, if Cyborg throws the kitchen sink, again, you got to take her out. You know, that's what you do. You got to do it. If you leave her alive, Nunes is going to lose this round, right? 10-8 maybe. But Nunes, I like everything she has in terms of mindset and stuff like that. So I see Nunes alive in round 2. Clean her up a little bit. Coach tells her, all right, you're still in this fight. You're alive, you know. It's funny. You know, it's like, where are you? It's like, you know, I'm shopping at Macy's. It's like, stop the fight, you know. But there's a great boxing quote where a doctor, after a terrible first round of a guy, comes over in Madison Square Garden. I forget which fighter it was, but it was a middleweight contender or world champion. And he says to him, he goes, do you know where you are? And the guy looks at him and goes, I'm in fucking Madison Square Garden getting my ass. If Nunes is that fighter who's fucking cognizant of where she is in round 2, you've given her a shot.
Hey, I've got another one for you. I got a guy named Squire Hill, and he's standing in the ring, and they said, do you know how old you are? And he said, well, I was born in 76, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what's that make me? 12, 13, 14, 15 years old? Anyways, go ahead.
Squire Hill.
We got to work him in every now and then. Okay, so ding ding, round 2 comes out. You know, maybe we got a 10-8 round in the first round. She comes out in the second round. Does Amanda start to work her jab and her low kicks and start to slow Cyborg down? Or does she have to absorb another round of the same shit?
I think Cyborg's makeup is that round 2 is going to see her have the foot off the pedal. She can't duplicate the rush in round 1 if our scenario goes that way, right? If she throws the kitchen sink out, she's not going to be able to duplicate that kind of heat, which gives Nunes. So in that respect, Nunes doesn't need to win this round, but she really needs to send a message. She needs to hurt her, and she needs to let her know, hey, oh, I caught you. Hey, I'm still here.
Yeah.
You didn't do nothing to me. So you can, and fights can go different ways, you know. But this is a good scenario, and I think this is a good test of the way Nunes could go, and I think this is why it's a fight worth watching. I think the main event really isn't all that worth watching.
Okay, so we go to round 3. We've got sort of a, you know, maybe we've got another a 10-9 round for Cyborg again. Now what happens?
Now it becomes a real test because
now we're there.
Nunes, I said Nunes needed to do some damage in round 2, and I think that's the case. I think if at some point Nunes is forced to always play defense and doesn't get off, then this fight could go all Cyborg. Just similar to the way the Holly Holm fight was left, where Holm had to play defense to not get hurt and just never got off her real offense.
Right.
I'm giving Nunes a little more credit, a little more diversity to her technique.
She's longer. She's stronger.
Throws good kicks, but she's got a kickboxer's tendency, an American kickboxer's tendency, in my book, to do more a high kick.
Yeah.
Like the one she fought Rousey with. Right? Yeah. I think Nunes can come in and has to make sure she lands 10 or 15 good leg kicks in round 2. You know, maybe that's a strategy, but somewhere she's got to send a message and be in the ball game. Round 3,
and really start to sap Cyborg's energy.
Round 3, it's a 5-round fight. Round 3, if you can't start to turn the tide there, and you've left Cyborg with enough that she can cruise the rest of the fight, that's what you're going to get. Cyborg cruising to the end, and you just falling short and losing every round. So she's got to turn it around. I give her credit for the capability of doing that. We'll see if the body responds.
I don't think that happens. I think that Nunes starts to turn it up in round 3.
No, I'm not saying it can't, but I'm saying that's where the fight gets decided. Her ability to turn it up. And if this all changes, right? If Cyborg comes out in a defensive stand and says, come to me, right? But if Cyborg comes out and rushes and tries to kill, well, that's the path we're on, you know? So anyway, let's get to Gustafsson and Jones.
Okay. So final analysis. Who are you taking on Cyborg and Nunes? What's your final analysis?
The sport books have it looks like Nunes is about a 3-1 underdog, and I like that. I'll try some of that.
What are the numbers on that?
minus 285. You're seeing. I'm sorry, plus 285 with Cyborg about a 3-1 favorite. A little bit less, minus 250 or something. So.
And for our audience who doesn't know what that means, tell them what that means real quick.
Basically, when you're the favorite, you got a minus number like minus 270. You have to bet $270 to win 100. And if you're Nunes and you have a number like plus 250 in front of your name, you're betting 100 to win the 250. So that's how you differentiate between the dog and the favorite, So at that moment, I think Nunes, is good value there because Nunes is a good fighter. And she's been on a good streak, coming off wins. She's confident. There's really no reason, no negative for her. And I think Cyborg comes into this fight, being the number one girl, target on her back. The weight cutting has always been an issue. Again, they make that a question for her and stuff. She comes in with a little more baggage.
Okay, good enough.
More to lose, too.
I agree. I think Nunes wins this fight. I think she finishes Cyborg. I think she finishes her late. And I think she finishes her on top of her. I don't think she submits her. I think she finishes her with strikes on top. That or maybe she gets her back and chokes her out. Okay, but anyways, I'm not the fight expert. Okay, so.
No, that's good stuff. I'll take some of that.
So we got Jon Bones Jones returns. If we can even get him in the goddamn ring without, getting busted for coke or hitting pregnant ladies or getting arrested for fucking whatever, I don't know. But if Jones can keep his shit together long enough to get in the ring and actually give us a fight and pass a piss test and all the stuff that goes along with it, which, God help us, surely he's grown up enough and learned his lesson enough now to have done this. There's nothing in his real demeanor that tells me that when I watch him and I watch him explain things, everything has this sort of arrogance and this narcissism that says, hey, I'm Jon Bones Jones. I can do what I want. I'm the greatest in the world. I did coke and beat your ass the night before. He literally bragged about that. He never addressed the proof that he failed drug tests. He just sort of said, "Oh, that was a nightmare," and I'm moving on. On the Joe Rogan Experience, he said, "Oh, I took a boner pill, and that had something in it that was an estrogen." Come on, whatever, man.
Yeah, the big story here at UFC 232 is what you're talking about, which is the return of Jon Jones, all right? When we talked about this in an earlier podcast, hopefully everybody out there is checking out the earlier podcast, because we talked about this, and we mentioned that Gustafsson was probably the most likely opponent for his comeback. And boom, there we get Alexander Gustafsson. That wasn't, any crystal ball type shit. That's, that was an easy pick, because he didn't really have an opponent. I think that limits the bigness of his comeback, is there's no real, train type of collision, especially with DC being coy about whether he's going to fight him or not, So right now Jones doesn't have the
and Jones saying that he won't fight DC.
So they're going to go back and forth. Dana White's on record saying that's the fight he wants, right? So we'll see. Dana usually gets what he wants, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens in that scenario. Now, there are a couple of interesting scenarios here to explore, because Jones is the big name. The UFC is going to hang their hat on him being a draw. And I'm not, has he let enough time go by? Have people forgotten? What can he do? I think he's got to win this fight big. I think he's got to wipe out Gustafsson. He can't leave Gustafsson the opportunity he gave him the first time, which is let him in the fight 5 rounds and live to talk about it, Come in, wipe him out, round 2, round 3, submission, or beat the tar out of him. Get him out of there and move on. And when you move on, that's when things get interesting for him in the UFC. Now, what makes it interesting for me is, and you're a conspiracy theorist, all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, DC gets hurt. And then the UFC's got, for March, Jones against Brock Lesnar.
Boom.
And that's the big fight, bigger than DC. That's the fight that Jones would really want. So you hate to think it, but Jones and we question his character. So Jones is probably rooting for DC to get hurt. I don't know if Dana is, but maybe with the idea planted in his head, he'll do a rain dance or something for that to happen. Because I think that's what the UFC would want. I think Lesnar would want that because it means a bigger payday. And I think Lesnar's looking at a loss in either fight.
Yeah, and you know what they say? So much of the success of a rain dance depends on timing.
Yeah, and I think Jones running over Gustafsson becomes a hot commodity there, and then DC. Then what happens? You have no opponent for him. You have to wait for DC and Brock Lesnar to happen, and then hope that the winner comes out in a position where if it's DC, then he comes back for yet another fight and fights Jones, which have fun negotiating that. That's going to be fun. And then if Lesnar wins, you've got Lesnar versus Jones for the heavyweight title. That's a big doable fight. That'll be very big for them, and they'll be so.
That'll be the biggest UFC payday ever.
Out of the picture before that, do you do it?
I think. Okay, first of all, this brings up several different topics. Number one, DC and Lesnar, if they fight. If that actually comes to be, which I think that will happen. When are they wanting to do that then? Do they have a date?
March.
So March. They're one doing the spring. If it actually comes to fruition, because if that doesn't come to fruition this time, then that probably never happens because DC is old enough that he goes, man, at some point I gotta hang up the spurs. And then he never fights Jones again, and it gives him a reason to not fight Jones, to walk out, having beaten Jones without ever having to beat him, and he kind of is able to get away with that and say he's, you know what I mean. He can walk away and sort of say, well, he never beat me because he cheated. Okay.
DC's in a delicate spot.
Yeah,
because,
and I feel for the guy. But look, the bottom line is the sort of steroid that Jones was on or that he tested for, it didn't make any difference on whether he beat DC or not. I mean, he was going to beat DC no matter what, and he's going to beat DC again no matter what. What I wish would happen is that USADA would leave DC alone and let him take roids long enough so that maybe he could be competitive against Jones. But having said that, so if, and man, I don't know what happens with DC and Lesnar. I think that's a coin toss in and of itself. But let's say that Jones, first of all, beats Gustafsson, which you pretty much firmly believe is going to happen, and I'm not far off on that either. It just seems like that's almost a foregone conclusion. And we could all eat our hats on that one, right? So first of all,
I mean, Gustafsson pulls off the upset. He's really thrown a damper in everybody's plans, including Jon Jones, big time a damper. So, but no one's counting on that. And I believe Gustafsson. I mean, here's the bottom line: is everybody says Jones has suspended this.
What are the numbers on that?
Here's the deal: is Jones, since his suspensions and stuff, he's come back a couple, this, that, and the other thing. He's 4-0 in the same time period. Gustafsson's 3-2. So it's not like he's been much more active, and he's been losing a couple of the fights and stuff. So to me, he's a faded fighter a little bit. His star isn't where it was coming off of the first time they fought, So he's dropped off a little bit. I think he's still the logical first opponent back, but he's a doorstep right now. If Jones comes out and extends this guy 5 rounds, you sit back and you wait. Jones comes out and runs him over, and you've got him at his prime, then you're open to trying to get the biggest fight possible, which might involve shelving DC.
Okay, so let's be fair. Let's be fair because we've completely ignored the idea of Gustafsson and Jones, and that's what we're supposed to be talking about. So let's be professional about this. Real quickly, give me your fight analysis on how Jones finishes. Oh, I'm sorry. What happens between Jones and Gustafsson? Call that fight for me real quick.
Well, I think you just said it. I think I look for Jones to get out of this fight. If it's a 5-round fight, which I believe it is, I look for him to get out in the first 3. He may extend it to round 3, but I don't expect it to go much longer. I don't think Gustafsson is going to be able to hang with him that long, especially with the strategy he used last time, which was, a lot of motion and uses his boxing and stuff like that. If you come back with that same trick, I think Jones will be okay with that. I think Jones has respect for Gustafsson, but I think that Jones, like you said, with the ego and stuff like that, is going to want to make a statement here in this fight. And I think the way to do it is get him out, and get him out with something flashy. If you do that, you've opened up a lot of possibilities there, including, here's the way the UFC can get out of it. They have to spend money, and I don't know they want to, but you come back and you say, with Jones running over.
Well, hold on. So does Jones finish Gustafsson with strikes, or does he like pull guard and hit him with a triangle? What?
No, strikes.
Strikes. Finish him with strikes.
Okay.
So Gustafsson's out of the way. Now we move on. DC and Lesnar fight in March. Jones sets in weight. DC and Lesnar fight. If DC wins, then you've got all kinds of negotiations going on where DC goes, I'm not fighting that fucking chump again. He's a cheater. Blah, blah, blah. I have to do this. And then DC does this to negotiate a massive retirement payday. And it's going to be one of the biggest pay-per-view events that the UFC's ever had, short of maybe a Rousey or a Conor McGregor thing. And it'll be right up there with those. But if Lesnar beats DC, which could very easily happen as well, not easily, but it could happen as well. I think that's a little less likely, but it could definitely happen. And so Jones moves up and fights Lesnar, which you seem to kind of believe is going to happen, and may happen whether he wins the belt or not.
No, I'm just saying it's an attractive option.
That is the biggest pay-per-view draw the UFC has ever seen, and it might double anything they've ever done in pay-per-view. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. Let me tell you how I would do it. And you tell me how you would sell it. You're the promoter. But here's what the matchmakers are going to be obligated to do. Jones has a spectacular performance against Gustafsson. You want to do Jones against Lesnar, and DC may have to sit. DC injured, that makes the fight easy. You just do it. But if DC's not injured, what do? I would do this. First, you got to pay DC. Give him some money so he's not worried about any of the other stuff.
Give him a lot of money.
Have DC defend the UFC's world heavyweight title against Stipe Miocic, who is the former champion, who was the longest reigning world champion, is also do a rematch. You put that on top of Jones and Lesnar, give them their respect and stuff, and then let Jones and Lesnar carry the day and fight, and the winner can fight the winner, Miocic and Cormier. And that's kind of the most natural way to get out of the whole situation.
Okay.
Other than that, if you wait for DC to fight Jones, to fight Lesnar in March, Jones is on the shelf till March. Miocic is still on the shelf. And then off of March, you got to wait till probably September before, Lesnar or any of those guys are even back, right? So it's just on a timing wise, it's just they're putting off a fight that maybe in March is when it will be hottest.
Okay, here's what I do. As a promoter, I do this in July. I do a July 4th weekend pay-per-view. I do a Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz fight for the trilogy. I do DC gets injured or something so that he can't fight Lesnar. Or if DC beats Lesnar, then DC and tell me his name.
Jones.
No.
Or Miocic.
Miocic, yeah. He fights. So DC fights Miocic, and then Jones and Lesnar fight, and you have the biggest, most massive pay-per-view that the UFC has ever seen, and the most spectacular pay-per-view super fight, crazy draw that's ever been imagined, and they sell 50 million pay-per-views, and DC walks away with $50 million pretty easily. Lesnar walks away with 50 million at least. Jones gets his 50 million. Obviously, McGregor's going to make 100 million on that. Everybody makes millions and millions of dollars, and the UFC probably pushes something close to $500 million on their own. That is what I would do as a promoter.
Yeah, and I think it's a big. I think with Lesnar in the mix, you have to be careful. You don't know. That's why I rush the fight. I take DC to fight Miocic in March. I make Jones and Lesnar now, because if you're going to do that, then it takes it out of the title picture. So you kind of have that respect where you're not messing the title picture up.
Yeah.
You're not shelving Miocic, which he's already been shelved, right? So you're kind of doing the right thing with all those aspects.
Right.
You're still getting the big fight that you want, and you get some respect out of it, and you get fat. Anything else that delays it, it just complicates things and doesn't line everything else up perfectly. So DC would have to get over not fighting Lesnar and have to give Miocic a rematch. But I think DC, the competitor, says, as long as you're going to pay me the same or pay me a little more, then yeah, I'll do that. So I think that's your only way out of it. I think Gustafsson, a Gustafsson win on the 29th of December destroys all that plan. And I don't know what it does to Jon Jones, especially when we've been questioning a little bit about where his ego is and things like that. A loss would be so unexpected. Who knows if he wouldn't derail for another year or we don't see him for a little bit. So, but we're, and I like Alexander, and I think he's a great fighter in terms of mind and things like that. But I just don't think it's the right time for a win for him. Karma-wise and everything, he's got a mountain in front of him for this fight. And a little bit of deterioration on his career. So, if it happens, it's a whole different story. We got a podcast to do, but right now I'll leave it at that. I don't think Gustafsson breaks through.
Okay, I'm gonna finish with this, and then I'll let you do the wrap up. But just for what it's worth, I sat down the other night to kind of brush up on this podcast, and I watched every single Jones fight from his very first fight at some basketball gym on up to his last fight with DC, and I noticed something that was it was glaringly obvious actually, and there is a massive slowness of his step that if you really watch them, you can see that there's, and maybe it's just that, look, when you're the champion, everybody trains for you. So that creativity, that quickness, that the ability to be flexible and long and do those crazy things aren't there anymore because you've done it all and you've seen it. Maybe that's what it is, but I don't think so. I think Jones is extremely rusty, and I think ring rust and age are catching up with him a lot faster than he thought they would. And I think that the wear and tear of the lifestyle has caught up on him much more quickly than he thought they would. And he has been utterly dependent on being an athlete. So, although I'm sure he trains super hard and all of that stuff, we've all seen the guy who's an athlete. And I always like to say that there's an enormous difference between talent and skill. Skill is something that you develop. Talent is something you have. When you put skill on top of talent, you have the complete total package. Mighty Mouse is a guy who had great talent and put skill with it. Jones is a guy who has a lot of talent, who's got all the talent in the world, but not necessarily all the skill. I mean, he's got it, yeah, but how much better could he be if he really committed himself full-time all the time instead of, oh, I'm going to train for 6 or 8 weeks and then I'm going to go off and, do blow for 6 weeks and party and, chase hookers in Tijuana or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying he does that. I just, it's just a stupid example. But so that is my observation. I wonder if you see that. I wonder what you think of that, and then wrap us up so we can get out of here. And that's the end of 232 for us.
I think I see what you're trying to say, and I know that once a fighter is starting to hit 30 like Jones is, that those are questions that have to be asked and stuff like that. But I'm not sure that Jones, I think is talent and technique as well. I mean, before DJ. And before Jones's fall, he was the number one pound for pound fighter on the planet. It wasn't DJ, it was Jon Jones, And I think, when you talk about their huge size difference, 80 pounds in difference, Jones is going to be a little bit less able to do some of the things DJ does just because of size and physics and mass in terms of things. But I think you're talking about a pretty talented fighter who does a lot of things and who's done a lot of things in MMA fights that we hadn't seen with a lot of success, especially at his weight class, unorthodox striking and things like that. So I think he still brings some of that to the table. I think, like you said, sometimes, a technique works once, maybe that's all you were able to get out of it. And you can't throw it anymore, and it just doesn't materialize in the fights.
Yeah.
But he has been more orthodox lately than he was in the beginning when he was coming up, and that makes him maybe a little more susceptible to fights. But Gustafsson has to be orthodox, and Gustafsson doesn't match him as an athlete. So Gustafsson's got too tall in order for this one, I think.
Agreed. Hey, anything else you want to add before we wrap this up, Miguel?
No, just Gustafsson, Jones are both veteran pros at the top of the game for a long time, so I'm not poo-pooing the fight. But I think that just for fighting's sake, that the Cyborg fight against Amanda Nunes is a more compelling fight. It's less likely that the winner is going to be predicted correctly. And, that makes it really interesting. I think it's a step up that the women are co-headlining on a New Year's Eve with Jon Jones and stuff. It's a step of how far they've come. And like I said, that's going to be a fight. You don't have to say that's a women's fight or anything like that. That's going to be a fight.
Yeah, I certainly think you could take that and switch that around and be just as well off easily. And I will definitely be purchasing that one without any doubt. Hey, don't forget to push the subscribe button below. All that good stuff, blah, blah, blah. You know all of that. You know how to hit us. You know how to reach us. Comment. Tell us what all you think. We appreciate everything you've all got going on. TheSweetScience.com, TheBoxingChannel.com, the International Brotherhood of Prize Fighting, and oh yeah, we're opening up No Pity what's it called? It's my goddamn label. NoPityFightGear.com. So we're doing No Pity Fight Gear again. So we're getting ready to open up a whole clothing line again, and so people can order that stuff. We'll do one-offs and print all kinds of crazy shit for you. We have this one that says no fucking pity, period. People seem to love for some reason. Anything that says a cuss word on it, people buy. We appreciate everybody. Namaste. Yes.